All right, you guys, no time to waste today because we got a lot to do. This is gonna be kind of a big day for me. Gonna jump right into it today because I gotta get this engine and that transmission into the car. Since I painted it, I don't really want to risk scuffing it or the engine scraping against the front panel here. I don't want to take those chances, so it looks really stupid, but I did what needed to be done and we got cardboard protecting us. We're gonna lower the subframe, get the engine on the hoist and drop the engine in here, and then we'll lower the subframe, raise the subframe back up and bolt the engine to the subframe there. Without further ado, let's get into this because we got a lot of stuff to do. I gotta get the transmission in the car so that I can get the measurements for the drive shaft and start working on the shifter location. The time lapse begins now. Well, the engine is actually in, believe it or not. Not everything's tight in it, I'll be honest. That was not easy. It is incredibly tight back by the brake booster. Basically, when you put the engine in, subframe has to be loose and hanging or at least off completely in order to put the engine in here how it needs to. Okay, we're here for day 2 of trying to get this transmission into the Z. Got it under the car at least today. I tried putting it in last night, spent about an hour on it, and then I gave up. Pulled it all out, let it sit on the floor, took a break overnight, thought about it. Hopefully try something new today, but I'm probably gonna end up doing the same thing. So let's get started on this, and you guys can just kind of watch me struggle, I guess, through this time lapse. I'll make it quick so you guys, it'll look easy.
3 hours later.
It is exactly where it has been and where I started, except this time we're doing things a little bit differently because I have had to, may be difficult to tell here, but I've actually dropped the engine by about 6 inches. We're dropping the subframe so we can level the engine with the transmission and hopefully slide it straight on and then just bolt it right into the car and go from there. Okay, so we finally got the transmission seated into place. It's sliding into the pilot bushing right now. It is very, very tight. I've fought with this thing all day long trying to get it in here. Okay guys, so we're back today. Last weekend, I got the engine in the car, the transmission is in the car, everything's sitting in there right now. It's not quite bolted up yet, and the reason for that is that it's not sitting quite straight. Now, I've always had this problem even with my older setup. So I think a lot of it could be coming from the front subframe and just how it bolts up to the chassis. So I really need to address that and figure out what's going on there and get this engine shifted how it needs to sit because I don't want to mess up this transmission. So just to show you guys what I'm working with here, there is like minimal clearance. I'm not even sure if you can see. I'll try to zoom in. There's like very little clearance. I destroyed all this. Yeah, don't even worry about that. Thankfully, it's far enough back, the piping will cover it up. And let me just show you underneath the car, because had to do a little bit of beating and banging underneath the car as well. As you can see, I got some bolts in here, kinda, sorta. I got my jack. My jack was holding it up. Apparently, the transmission is actually holding itself up right now. Figure out why it's not. Oh, I guess it is lining up. Okay, well, I've officially completely lost track of time while getting this engine straight. And, well, needless to say, push came to shove and sacrifices had to be made. If you look closely, this subframe here does not sit straight with the engine. I mean, you can even see how close this is over here. That's not normal. With that said, I had to cut this little corner off of the subframe to give me just enough room to allow the engine to torque as it may need to, and hopefully that'll be enough to where it won't puncture the oil pan, drain out all my oil, and leave me starved with oil. Until I can think of a better way to fix that, that's gonna be what it is. I'm kind of stuck here, literally. I hope these Harbor Freight jack stands don't freaking fail on me. Let me get out from under here. I'm done with this. So, engine is finally in the car. Everything is straightened out and ready to go. As for the transmission, back to that now. I have to take the measurements still for the drive shaft. I'll get to that while I'm under there. But I also want to install this. Now, this is the complete all-in-one harness from Bowler Transmissions that you can order when you order a T56 Magnum. So included with this harness is this little module right here. What this will do is that'll take the speed sensor output from the transmission and translate it to an input for your factory speedometer. So you don't have to go about buying an aftermarket or secondary speed adjustment controller of sorts, or speed calibration controller. It's built into the harness that comes with the transmission, and all you have to do is wire it into the factory speed cable, plug it into the speed output sensor on the transmission, and then connect to this through a Bluetooth app on your phone, and then just calibrate it as you go, which is awesome. All right, so I'm not sure how well y'all can see, but we've got a bunch of little things to connect here and there, and then we should be all set and Gucci ready to go. Literally 3 connections. You can't mess it up. The speed calibration module gets bolted in right here. We got the reverse lockout pin, which goes right here. I looped the wires around, so we got some slack in that area. You can see my shifter up there sitting nice and pretty. That'll have to be shifted forward about 1.5 inches. And we got a zip tie. I zip tied mine to right here with the little clip that they gave us. And then it just kind of terminates right here for now, and I gotta run some wiring into my factory transmission harness, and we're gonna tie it into that. As for drive shaft measurement, so we measure from the seal of the transmission to the flange, not this part, this is a lip, but the flange face where it seats onto of the differential, and we get about 32. You guys probably can't see it from there, but it's 32 3/8 of an inch. So that's the measurement we're going to provide to the drive shaft shop. And we also, so this side here can stay the same because it's still the same differential. But as for the front needs to swap out for a Tremec T56 31 spline slip yoke. So we'll get that measurement to the machine shop, or the drive shaft shop rather. So we've got neutral right here. So I want this to be probably literally right in the middle, because we gotta go forward and we gotta go back. So with that said, literally want to move it let's say 1 3/4 inches. We'll do that, 1 3/4 inches, and we'll call it a day. Okay, so before I go ahead and start on the transmission wiring, I'm gonna go ahead and plumb in my fuel lines. That way I don't have to worry about disconnecting fuses, fuel accidentally dumping all over the place. I don't want to have to worry about that. So we're just going to plumb the fuel lines into my fuel rails. Okay, so pardon the mess. I'm all over the place right now today. I spent like 30 minutes looking for this guy. So this is my Aeromotive A1000 fuel pressure regulator. This is the exact same thing that I used on my last setup. I actually got this used from a buddy of mine, and it works just fine. So it's pretty standard Aeromotive fuel pressure regulator, and I'm just gonna plumb in these these are the dash 6 that came out of there, and I will be converting it to the dash 8. And I have this mounted in a very another very common location where a lot of people put their aftermarket fuel pressure regulators. Nothing too crazy, nothing out of the ordinary, I'd say. Pretty standard issue. Okay, so this is all I got for the bottom, I guess. I don't know if this is really going to work all that great. I might end up getting another 90-degree fitting to plumb through the bottom side here, because I don't know if that'll be enough space for what I'm trying to do with it. Yeah, that might have to change. This, in case you're wondering, is just a fuel pressure sensor. Your fuel pressure reading, which is very handy, especially when you're tuning the car yourself. or for any tuner for that matter. That way you can confirm that the fuel pressure is rising at a rate of 1:1. So if you're not familiar with boost pressure versus fuel pressure, typical industry standard is for every 1 psi of boost pressure, your fuel pressure raises 1 psi as well. If you buy an aftermarket fuel pressure regulator, make sure you get one that is a 1-to-1 ratio. That way, when your boost pressure goes up in the intake manifold, your fuel pressure can overcome that boost pressure. Quick rundown of how fuel pressure regulators work versus boost pressure. Okay, so that does it for the fuel rails and the fuel system. It is now completely tied in 100%. I can now test my fuel system and make sure there aren't any leaks as I'm doing the other work. From here, let's get started on the transmission harness and we'll knock that out real quick. So, originally, I was gonna reuse these brackets. So that is why I didn't remove them when I painted the car. All these connectors are gonna be pulled through right down here, and it's gonna run along this frame rail to the back. And then obviously a part of this is also the alternator connectors, which I'll probably end up having to change out anyways. No big deal there, but let's get to it. All right, so I've got my alternator charge harness with my transmission harness. So we have vehicle speed sensor, we have neutral safety lockout, and then we have reverse light switch. These will have to be tied in to this, which is off of the transmission from the Bowler all-in-one harness. And this harness here, I believe I'm going to terminate it right here and put a Deutsch 6-pin connector right here. Now the catch here is that these wires are a little bit larger than what we use on today's standards. I may terminate these wires way back here and run all new wires to the Deutsch connector, which I will have clipped in right here. Pretty simple. Okay, so for the terminating ends of the Bowler all-in-one harness, we have red and black, which is power and ground. It's used primarily for the reverse lockout switch. And then there's also a purple, let's do purple. Purple, yellow, and purple, white. So the purple, yellow, and the purple, white are the speed output signal wires. So one of these comes standard with a 40 pulse output, and the other one is a 16 pulse output. It turns out, if I'm reading this correctly, you can change that pulse output on either one of these wires to be, I guess, whatever pulse output you want. 16, or like either one can be 16 pulses or 40 pulses. And you can change that through the app via the Bluetooth control module. We're gonna wire in the purple yellow for the speed output. And then I've got these two, which are for reverse lights. So that was just a little tidbit of information that I spent probably a lot of time researching and looking up that I didn't really need to. And hopefully my findings are correct based on that. If somebody wants to hop in the comments and correct me if I am wrong, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I'll find out once I get the car running. Okay, guys, so this is my transmission harness. It's all done. Everything's tied up nice and neat here. I've got it running kind of along the back there all the way up to the front, and it goes up along here. There's a ground right there, and then all the connectors are right there, which are tied in nice and neat against the frame rail. So the biggest thing was this little connector right here. I've heard a lot of people using these before. They're very popular among numerous different things. I mean, these are my oxygen sensors, and they came with them from Innovate. I think Innovate or Haltech, I can't remember who pinned these, but this was a pre-built harness from a major company, and they use pretty much the exact same connector as this one that I have here. Now, if you noticed, I had to tie in The wires from this harness, the extra bit of wires, I had to crimp them up here since the wires that went into here from the factory would have been too big. I still have a few more things to tidy up on the inside, such as the oil pressure drain lines, and I really just want to get all of the mechanical stuff tied in first, and then I'll zip tie and connect all my wiring and connectors here. Anyways, I'm pretty sure that's gonna do it for today, you guys. The engine is in the car, the transmission is in the car, the transmission harness and all that is set. I do have a little bracket that I have to make yet for my shifter location, just to adjust it forward about 1 3/4 inches. For today, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Stay tuned for the next video. We got some more good stuff coming. Hopefully this car will be up and running in the next couple weeks or month or so, give or take. Depends on how everything else comes in. I am still waiting on the downpipes and all that, so we'll see what happens, you know. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, follow along, stay tuned for the next video, and we'll see y'all next time.